I hope you've got some idea from the set of topics that we've covered, the effects that Brian has had, not only on computing science in general, we've been through a number of the areas that he's been working in, but also on the people who've had the privilege of working with him. That effect is very hard to measure, but I think you've heard from all of the speakers the extent to which Brian has had an influence on the way they've worked and the work that's happened, and subsequent influence on what computer science has done in those areas. So it's been a fascinating walk through, I think, and the set of topics that we've had, from the hardware, the electromechanical that Doran started with, finishing with the programming, with all of the other bits in between, and particularly the area of dependability, reliability, fault tolerance, whatever this week's buzzword is for that, the effect that Brian has had on that. David touched on some of the aspects of Brian's work. I think perhaps one, if you'll allow me a personal reminisce, is the area that really hasn't come across was the notion of dealing with bugs in programs. Brian was the first one who recognized that and started to flag that. These hardware faults are the easy ones. The really tricky ones that we should be studying are the ones concerned with bugs in programs, software faults. And that whole notion of software fault tolerance was a good starting point, and that's where I and Tom and many others came into that area, and that much then broadened into the classification that Al talked about when he talked about the classification of faults. So I hope we all got from that, an idea of the breadth of influence that Brian has had on many of us. And I'd like to thank Brian for that. And in a moment, we'll have Brian down to perhaps just to finish us off with a few words. Some housekeeping detail, because we'd like to really thank the speakers for coming and giving the talks. And we have some small gifts that we'd like to give to all of the speakers. So if the 6 speakers could like to come on down.